What's up LEGO fans, it's LEGO Man Cam, and in today's video, I'm going to be following up my last look at the tragic downfall of LEGO Dimensions and take a look at the cancelled themes and packs for the third year of the game. I also want to take a look at some of the cancelled content for year 2, and we'll start off by looking at perhaps the most sought after character in the whole game, and one that was incredibly close to being made. This was Lord Vortek himself. Now this is by far the most 100% confirmed character to have been originally appearing in the game, as he was supposed to be the final character released for the game, but was somewhere scrapped between the end of year 2's release. The reason we know this is because in the 2017 data mine, this dug into the game and found a huge number of scrapped audio files that were the original voice lines for Lord Vortek. I'll quickly play through a few of them now for you.
Who you gonna call? Lord Vortek! Ooh, oh, a portal gun. How quaint. What? This thing can only go backwards and forwards in time? Boring.
Lord Vortek was said to have been a character that would have unlocked all the worlds and allowed the player to travel to any of them as long as he was on the toy pad. His abilities were also unknown, and what's also unknown is when or how exactly he would have appeared. Initially, with the game's 3-year run, Vortek was going to be the final character released at the end of year 3. However, as we know, the game was cut short down to just 2 years with its cancellation. This meant that Lord Vortek was then expected to be releasing at the end of year 2, but with the number of packs getting cut short, this again meant that Lord Vortek was ultimately cancelled. Even up until the release of Wave 9, a Lord Vortek fun pack was heavily rumoured to be the sole and only pack releasing for Wave 10. This rumour was then debunked, but then a new rumour sparked up that a poly bag was even listed as appearing for the character. This would have been so amazing to get him as a character, let alone for his abilities in the game, but more so for the actual physical LEGO figure himself. He was a really awesome character, and it's a real shame that we never got to see him. Next up, we'll look at characters that were originally going to release for year 2, in addition to the packs and the characters that we already got. First off, starting with the terrible Ghostbusters 2016 movie, which I'll try and get over as quickly as possible, there was always a rumoured fun pack to be available. Now the exact figure that we would have gotten is unknown, however there are quite a few leads. The biggest and most prominent one is getting a Jillian Holtzman, who had a unique version of here appear in the actual Ghostbusters Ecto 1 and 2 set. However, in promotional images for the set, she has an exclusive face print, which is one that never actually came in the set. She also has a differing torso print with some of the ammo patches taken off. Many people think that that version of the character, the one that didn't appear in the set, was the exclusive one that was going to appear in the fun pack, as if you remember, all of the year 2 characters are actually exclusive in some way to their sets. However, I don't see her having gotten too far into production, as when you do play as Abigail Yates from the story pack, you can swap to Holtzman at any time. Therefore, it wouldn't have really made a lot of sense to have her as a standalone character too, considering you get her when you get the story pack. The other 2 rumoured characters who could have appeared in this fun pack were also Rowan North, who's the villain from the film, or Kevin Beckham, who was the Chris Hemsworth character. I do think the idea of a fun pack here was definitely possible, as both other story pack franchises did get a fun pack to go along with them. If you think the Tina Goldstein pack from Fantastic Beasts, and then the Excalibur Batman one from the LEGO Batman movie. In the original leak for year 2 as well, there was a second Ghostbusters pack expected, so I think this would have made a lot of sense, because kind of having the fun packs for these franchises gave people the ability to get to the adventure worlds without having to buy an entire $50 story pack. There were some more cancelled packs from year 2 that were from existing franchises already in the game, and these come in the form of Missy from Doctor Who would have been in a fun pack, which again allowed sort of access into the Doctor Who world, maybe for newer players. Some more Scooby-Doo characters were also initially planned, as that does make a lot of sense because it always felt really weird only having Scooby and Shaggy without even being able to change into Fred or Daphne or Velma. I'm sure there would have been maybe another team pack and then a fun pack to give us some sort of permutation of the other 3 characters. Chuck was originally supposed to appear with Sloth in a Goonies team pack, but this was later changed into the level pack that we got. And lastly was Ron Weasley from Harry Potter, who was going to appear with Hermione in the team pack. And this one makes total sense to me, because it was really weird that we got Harry, Voldemort, and Hermione, but never got a Ron character. Other than this, there were also meant to be a few alterations made to the packs that we did get. Batman and the Joker were originally going to be the 2 figures for the Lego Batman movie pack, but I am glad that they went ahead and changed it to Robin and Batgirl, because we did already have a Joker and Batman minifigures, and I think it just made a lot more sense to use the Batman figure that everyone already had from the starter pack. Speaking of Robin, when the initial Year 2 launch happened, there were an extra 2 level packs that were planned for the game, but then ultimately got scrapped. One of these would have been a Teen Titans Go level pack, including a Teen Titans Go version of Robin. This level would have ultimately become that themed episode that we got. If you remember, when you purchased any of the Teen Titans Go packs, you got access to an exclusive Teen Titans Go episode. This was just made using the cutscenes that were taken out of the level. The figure also would have appeared just like he does when you put on the Lego Batman movie Robin in the Teen Titans Go world. You get that exclusive skin for the character in the game. The other scrapped level pack was a Beetlejuice one, and with the game coming to a premature end, obviously, this one was just turned into a fun pack as well, which I think was fine. I don't think we really needed a whole level for that movie. The adventure world was pretty cool. With all of that, that mostly covers all of the Year 2 cut content, except for 2 more entirely new franchises which were expected to close out Year 2, with the first being Minecraft. Yes, there was actually going to be a full 6-level Lego Minecraft experience inside of Lego Dimensions. It has been stated that this would not have followed the Minecraft story mode, which was quite popular at the time, but it would actually have been its own unique story. I'm sure there would have been lots of crossovers and sort of different levels to play through, with maybe an Ender Dragon battle at the end, and then of course the adventure world as well to explore. So the story pack would have included Steve, and then we don't know anything else about that, but I could only imagine that the build for the portal would have been a giant nether portal, which would have been really cool, I think, to put your minifigures on the toy pad and have them go through the nether portal. Anyways, this was of course scrapped, just like everything else, because of the end of the game. So the other franchise that was expected was Despicable Me, which again makes complete sense, because what you can find on store shelves right now are Lego Despicable Me 4 sets. Anyway, the Despicable Me packs were actually going to be something completely unique, which were going to be called Connectables, or at least that was their workshopped name at the time. These were going to be a new type of pack that were actually supposed to be something completely unique, and were going to be released towards the end of Year 2 and then continue into Year 3. These would give out special bonuses and customization options to change your existing characters and vehicles and give you new weapons and things like that. The Despicable Me pack though would have worked sort of as an introduction to the whole Connectables line, with its own storyline that takes you through the Despicable Me world and teaches you how to use these Connectables. Again, this was scrapped like everything else, but I'm really interested to see how this would have actually worked, as it does seem like a pack that would be pretty necessary to get, as it's an introduction to the whole Connectable idea. I'm wondering if it maybe would have been a really small one and maybe a lot cheaper so that everyone could get it to get into the Connectables line. So now let's get into everything that was planned for the 3rd year, and get ready, get some popcorn, take a seat, because it is a lot. And it is also worth noting that Year 3 would not have just included new story, level, team, and fun packs, but there also would have been a huge downloadable update to the main game, which would have added a stack of new levels and content that all stem from that original story following Gandalf, Wildstyle, and Batman. This of course would have continued from that post-credit scene that we see at the end of the main game, as either a new villain or Lord Vortek would show up again and start causing chaos. So this of course means that Year 3 was going to be the biggest launch for the game in terms of new content. Maybe not in terms of physical numbers of packs, since I think that Year 1 and that original wave definitely is going to hold the title there, but the amount of new franchises added to the game would have been insane and brought it to a total of 52 franchises. Perhaps a good place to start is 4 franchises that all kind of tie in together, and this is because LEGO had officially acquired the rights to DreamWorks Animations, which meant we would have got packs based on some of their franchises. There were 4 franchises that were going to be worked on to get Dimensions packs, those being Shrek, The Croods, How to Train Your Dragon, and Captain Underpants. Firstly, let's take a look at Shrek, which in hindsight is crazy to think just how close we were getting it, because for the last few years there's been a whole number of different LEGO Shrek ideas submissions, all of which been rejected. So I'm wondering what a Lego Shrek would have looked like in Dimensions. My biggest expectation is either a Shrek level pack or maybe a team pack with Shrek and Donkey. A level pack would be cool though, so you could play through one or maybe multiple of the movies, but an adventure world as well would have just been awesome to explore. You could go to Shrek's Swamp or even places like Lord Farquaad's castle. Next up was the Croods, and I definitely think we would have just seen something like a fun pack here, probably with Eep, who is the main character from the film. Maybe something similar to the A-Team Fun Pack, where you could have played as Eep, but then also the rest of her family members, and had them all sort of roam around the adventure world together. This would have been a really interesting adventure world, I think. It would have been quite unique because it's got that real prehistoric theme to it. Next up is one that would have been so amazing, and this was the How to Train Your Dragon pack. I think maybe a team pack with Hiccup and Astrid, and then the builds of their dragons, Toothless and Stormfly, would have worked really well. And they could have included heaps of different like sky races, so you could ride around on your dragons and then meet the other characters in the game and maybe race against them. And then the last franchise here is Captain Underpants, which I think is perfect for a sort of smaller franchise to just get a fun pack. There's a lot of fun to be had here. I think you could just explore the school and the neighborhood, fight crime and things like that. After these 4 franchises, I want to talk about one that was always going to appear in LEGO Dimensions, but it was cancelled very, very late in production, but it actually still got turned into a LEGO video game. This is of course the LEGO Ninjago movie game. This would have been an obvious franchise to have in the game, since we had the LEGO movie, the LEGO Batman movie, and Ninjago already, so this one was just the next one up on the roster. As Dimensions was getting cancelled, there was an initial LEGO Ninjago movie story pack planned, which would have included Lloyd, and then had you play through the movie. This was then reworked into the LEGO Ninjago movie video game, and as you can tell, a lot was changed here, as obviously the game includes an entire game's worth of content compared to a story pack, which would have just had 6 levels and an adventure world. But this also does kind of go on to explain why the LEGO Ninjago movie video game is so short compared to the other TT LEGO games, because it had a really small production time. Now with all of the next franchises, just like the previous DreamWorks mentioned ones, it was all unknown as exactly to what type of packs we could have got. So I'm going to do a bit of speculation, but it is definitely confirmed that these franchises were produced to some extent. It's just not certain as to how far along the line they got. First up, we have the Smurfs. Now, I'm expecting this to have been based on sort of the recent animated movies that came out at the time, but it's not actually known. It could have just been based off of the Smurfs sort of in general. I think a team pack would have worked well here with maybe Papa Smurf and Smurfette, as I think they're probably the 2 most recognizable characters from the series, or maybe even like Gargamel, who would have been a funny character to get. I always loved him in those movies. If it was based on the movies though, the sort of adventure world could have had you exploring like the kind of mushroom Smurf village and then maybe transport you into New York, but I don't think we would have really needed that because it would have been like the 5th rendition of New York that was in the game. Next up was Avatar, and this is not the Blue People Avatar, this is Avatar The Last Airbender, the far superior Avatar at that. I think this would have been amazing to get a level pack playing through some of the series. Aang would have obviously been the figure included, and I think this series is actually very similar to Ninjago in a lot of ways, so it would have been really cool to see these characters interact, like the different fire and water elementals. Especially since we haven't gotten any form of LEGO Avatar The Last Airbender sets since the original sets came out literally 18 years ago. Now we have sort of a DC sub-franchise similar to the LEGO Batman movie or Teen Titans Go, and this would have been the CW Arrowverse. Now this universe was actually teased in the actual LEGO Dimensions game, which kind of always showed that it was possible, but the sets that we are potentially going to get was an Arrow and Flash team pack. The Flash was a character that was sort of notably missing from the DC lineup, as we got like Cyborg and all the other members of the Justice League. Both these figures would have been really awesome to get. They would have been their Arrowverse versions, but I am expecting that Flash would have maybe like altered appearances when he entered the original DC Comics world. It would have been great to get Flash so that we could have both him and Sonic on the team at the same time to see who truly is the fastest, as well as having 2 versions of Green Arrow could have been really funny, because the actual Green Arrow character in the game is really funny. I love whoever did the voice work for him. There was also a rumor that Flash was maybe going to be a polybag character at some point, which definitely also has some credibility to it, since both of the other polybags that we got for the game were other DC characters, being Supergirl and Green Arrow. We now have the Monsterverse, which would have appeared in the form of Godzilla and King Kong. Now these would have been really insane to get, as the movies are super popular, like still dominating the box office to this day, and it's really interesting to think about how these packs would have actually worked, considering that like Godzilla and King Kong would have just been reduced down to regular minifigures. I'm assuming that there would have been a way to kind of like supersize the figures in the game, so much more though than just like the regular big characters like we had with Homer. Maybe an entire like Lego city could have been in the adventure world where you can just stomp around as the monsters and cause like absolute chaos. This would have been, of course, probably a team pack, which would have just had both the characters. But then again, I don't know what kind of vehicles or gadgets could have even been made here. The next franchise is one that you can pretty much guarantee was going to happen, and this was Looney Tunes, as just a few years ago, we got our very own Looney Tunes CMF series. It's great looking back to sort of see like how many of these actual franchises actually did become Lego sets or minifigure series later on, and I think it does go to show you just how far probably a lot of these franchises actually got in development. The Looney Tunes character, I think, would have 100% been Bugs Bunny, probably just in a fun pack, which would have given us the whole crazy, wacky Looney Tunes world to explore, with areas like the desert where you find Roadrunner and the Tasmanian Devil, and then some more suburban areas with like Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck. There was then Mega Man, which I'm not going to talk about too much because I don't have very much background knowledge on the topic. Initially, I thought he was a Nintendo character, but after doing some research on it, he's actually owned by Capcom, which is what would have allowed this crossover. Mega Man is another sort of video game character, so it would have probably worked similar to Sonic. I'm thinking maybe then a level pack would have been made with its own unique story, or maybe just copying the story of one of the games, but obviously in Lego style. Next is a super controversial franchise, and one that I would have loved to have in the game, but it takes like a lot of explaining to figure out if this is actually what was going to happen, because this is Pirates of the Caribbean. Now, we did have a Lego Pirates of the Caribbean video game before, and of course all the sets that came out, but this franchise is actually owned by Disney, who of course make Disney Infinity, which was a direct competitor to this game. However, Disney Infinity did end before year 2 of LEGO Dimensions was released. Therefore, with this franchise being expected to appear in year 3, it actually does kind of make sense, as LEGO Dimensions was kind of dipping their toes in the water with one of Disney's smaller franchises before going all in with something like Star Wars or Marvel. When Disney did announce the cancellation of Disney Infinity, they did explain that they were looking more to send their IPs to other companies and game developers rather than continue making their own games like Disney Infinity themselves. Therefore, this completely makes sense to me, and I think a Jack Sparrow level pack or maybe a story pack would have been awesome here to let you play through key moments from all the films, or maybe they would have tied it into Dead Men Tell No Tales, which was actually releasing sort of around this time. Next up, we have Steven Universe, which again is a perfectly logical franchise from Cartoon Network. And considering we got Teen Titans Go and Adventure Time in the previous year, I definitely would have seen this one happening. In terms of characters, I think obviously you would have got Steven himself, but I really would have wanted to see Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl as Lego minifigures too. So I'm hoping we could have maybe got like 2 team packs to get those 4 characters, or even a fun pack, a team pack, and a level pack, or something like that. The next franchise that I would have absolutely loved to have gotten in LEGO Dimensions, considering at the time it was a regular LEGO theme, was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. In conjunction with Avatar: The Last Airbender, this would have been another Nickelodeon theme, and it would have perfectly sort of fit in with the game. Of course, it would have been necessary that you got to play as all 4 Ninja Turtles, whether that be like a Leonardo level pack where you get access to the other characters, or maybe 2 separate team packs, one with Leo and Donatello and then one with Raphael and Michelangelo. The Ninja Turtles is always a popular franchise, so I think it would have been amazing to get them in the game and explore sort of like the sewers running around as the turtles, and again their interactions with the Ninjago characters would have been so funny, I feel like. Another kids movie from 2016 was a planned franchise, and this is one that we did get LEGO sets for. This was Angry Birds for, at the time, the Angry Birds movie. Now, we did get sets based on the movies, so we know exactly what the Dimensions figures would have looked like, and I'm assuming that we maybe would have got something like a red level pack or a fun pack with some new gameplay to kind of simulate that Angry Birds vibe. Lego Angry Birds, I think, would have worked really well in the game because you can like launch the birds into Lego pieces, which of course would fall apart and cause some massive destruction and would have looked really cool. Maybe flinging other characters around in slingshots, someone like Homer or Gandalf or something. There was then the Thunderbirds was going to be a franchise, and again, I don't know a whole lot about this franchise. I did a little bit of research, and firstly, they look creepy as hell. I don't know if it's meant to be the scary thing, but they look really scary. Secondly though, they're kind of like dudes that fly jet planes to my understanding. So I guess maybe a fun pack with the main character whose name is Virgil Tracy, and maybe a jet as a side build. But yeah, again, sorry, I don't know much about this franchise. It was rumored to be in the game though. I'm just probably a bit too young for it. Next was Tintin, and I remember watching the movie of this in 2011, which I always really liked. It was sort of like an Indiana Jones-esque adventure. And you had like your main characters Tintin and Captain Haddock. I think a team pack would have worked really well, or maybe just a level pack with Tintin, but then you could have had Captain Haddock as a playable character too. That way, of course, you could play through a level of the story of the movie, or maybe one of the stories from the comic series, which dates back to literally almost 100 years ago in 1930. Tom and Jerry was another franchise that was considered, and I would have loved to have gotten this. I was just thinking about what the adventure world could have been like, and I'm thinking if they made it from their perspective. So if you get it from Tom or Jerry's perspective, you have like a really giant house to explore, a whole massive garden, which obviously is just a regular house, but then looks really big to them. Obviously, you would need this to be a team pack again, because you would need both these characters, so I think a team pack would have worked really well. Then you have the Universal Monsters franchise, which I had to do a bit of research into, but it's pretty much just all of those classic monsters that you think of, like Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, the Invisible Man, and the Mummy. I'm sure this adventure world would have been pretty spooky, and I'm not sure exactly what characters would have been made, probably not the Invisible Man though. Anyway, I think this franchise is probably going to be just a fun pack or maybe a team pack, but I don't think there's a whole lot going on here to make like a whole level or a story pack or anything like that. With just 2 franchises left, LEGO Dimensions was set to step foot into the DCEU with the Wonder Woman standalone film. Obviously, we would have gotten a Wonder Woman updated figure with maybe a Steve Trevor as well, but I think a level pack probably would have suited the movie well. The adventure world could have explored Themyscira with all of the sort of Amazons walking around as well, and even have a bit of a war aesthetic as you get into the plot of the actual Wonder Woman movie. What's interesting is that this would have been the first DCEU film to get its own world and expansion in LEGO Dimensions, so I'm wondering whether there would have been the DCEU as a whole franchise itself, or whether they would have had separate franchises for each of the movies, maybe like a Justice League franchise, for example. And the last franchise on this list is one that I really would have loved, and this is James Bond. Now, of course, just like a whole bunch of the other franchises we've looked at, we did eventually get LEGO James Bond. We got his big Aston Martin and then a smaller Speed Champions one just a couple years ago. However, this would have been a level pack which would have featured Daniel Craig's modern James Bond at the time, probably with the ability to go back and change his appearance to any of the other previous James Bonds, just like you could have done with Doctor Who. This pack was apparently rumored really early on in the game for LEGO Dimensions, but because of some licensing problems, it was easier to just go with Mission Impossible at the time, which did fill a very similar niche, and then they would have done James Bond later on, which of course never happened. So that's everything that was rumored to be appearing in LEGO Dimensions Year 2 and Year 3. It's crazy to see so many amazing franchises, so comment down below which one you would have liked to see the most. And even with all these franchises, I'm sure there would have been so many more that were discussed or mentioned at some point in production, but didn't make it very far off the ground. If you have made it this far into the video, I really appreciate you so much for watching, and I thank you for that, and I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, as this video took a very long time to work on. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next one.